Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We're joined by our great friend Lars Larson. You can catch him weeknights 6 to 9 right here after Sean Hannity on KIDO Talk Radio. Lars, good morning.
Kevin, good morning. How was your weekend?
You know, my weekend was great. I once again had a chance to catch up with my brother-in-law. He was in town for a wedding here in Star, Idaho, and we're sitting there talking. The first thing he says is, "So I hear you got Lars on." Of course, he loves you. He lives in Oregon, brother-in-law Rick, and he's always talking about how he's trying so hard to get more people to listen. His wife, Cindy, they kind of disagree. So one day, while she was gone, he made sure that every dial position, every preset was set to Lars Larson, and I have to share that with Lars today. And I said, well, hopefully Lars will bring her over, and I'm sure you will.
That's kind of fun. I hope she does come over. I mean, you know what Churchill said. If you're under 25 and don't have, and you're not conservative, you don't have a heart. If you're over 25 and you're not conservative, then you don't have a brain. And so we want to bring everybody over we can as gently as we can. Sometimes it's a fight, but that's all right. I had a great weekend. You know, Friday we did the broadcast from the Tri-Cities of Washington, from Pasco, and I want to tell you something I'm impressed by, because I'll bet you see in Boise, you'll see people saying, well, we want to preserve history, so we want the government to write a check for whatever it is that they're preserving. I did the broadcast from a house that's 110 years old. It's huge, and it's a beautiful, big old house. It's not completely restored yet, but it's not being restored on the public dime. It's being restored by a couple, a retired Air Force guy and his wife, and they're making it happen through private dollars, and they're holding weddings there and things like that. That helps defray some of the cost. But it's proof positive that you can preserve history without having it be a government project. And I like to remind people that an awful lot of the most signature pieces of history in America is or are preserved without tax dollars. The Alamo is a privately run operation, but it preserves history. George Washington's home, Mount Vernon, preserved with private dollars, not with the government. And I think if we unloaded that duty or that opportunity for governments to spend money preserving that which might be preserved better by private hands and private dollars, that we could then spend the government's dollars on the things we truly need. Maybe more police in schools. I mean, a lot of good activities. And then, of course, there was the protest. And I listened to most of the speeches front to back on my drive back, because it's about a 4-hour drive from where we did the remote. And I had a breakfast event to do on Saturday morning, so I'm listening to all these kids. And I give a lot of respect to kids. I get calls from kids on the show, and sometimes they agree with me and sometimes they don't. Either way, it's okay, but they have to make sense. And a lot of what they were saying on Saturday did not make sense. A young Latina lady that I was listening to, who was one of the speakers, said, no more school police, no more police in schools, no more hardening of the school entrances, don't arm the teachers, don't require clear backpacks. And part of her attitude went beyond just don't put more school resource officers in. I wish we'd just call them police officers in school, because that's what they are, trying to put school resource officers. It's a euphemism which is designed to, I guess, to shield people from the very idea this young lady was talking about. She said, you know, that she doesn't like seeing the police there. And there are a lot of people of color who don't like the police, which I think is nonsensical because, Kevin, like it or not, in America, if you're part of the minority community, you are likely not as well compensated as people in the majority. And that's something we'd love to give people the opportunity to fix that, but I want it fixed by the private sector, by people going out and taking the opportunities that America affords, get the great jobs, go to the great professions. But if you're a poor person in America, you are much more likely to become a victim of crime. And if you're a poor person in America, you're much more likely to need the services of the police. So the very idea that they're saying keep the police out of the schools because people who are members of racial minority groups, this was her assertion, do not like the police, and they view the police as bad. So keep them out of the schools. That is a terrible attitude because in some ways people of color need the police more so than the rest of us because they are more likely to be the victims of crime, oftentimes crimes committed by other people of color, and they may not have the resources to be protected from those crimes. I mean, if my car is stolen today, not likely, but if it's stolen today, I can pick up a phone, call my insurance agent, and I'll be in another car tomorrow. But the person who has their $2,000 get-to-work car stolen, who can't afford to insure it the way I do, that person may be in a tough spot because the very way they make their living requires them to have an automobile or a truck, and if they don't have it, they don't make a living. I'm not going to be in that position, but some people in this society are, and that's why you should appreciate what the police do. Now, can the police make mistakes? Absolutely right. But I think that this argument of no more police in schools, and she effectively, I was just ticking them off in my head, she took away all the tools that would be the best tools for dealing with a Nicholas Cruz situation, the killer who murdered 17 people about 2 months ago in Parkland, Florida. All the things that could have stopped him. She said, we don't want police there, and this is one of the lines I'm going to pull a soundbite from, because they criminalize our behavior. Well, if you're obeying the law, your behavior can't be criminalized. They can't turn lawful behavior into crimes. But what they can do is say if you commit crimes at school, if the school will call the police, we'll see that the person is prosecuted. What would that have done in Nicholas Cruz's case? He did commit crimes at school. He threatened to kill people. He assaulted people. He intimidated people. He committed the crime. If they had taken some action, one phone call to the police, please come and arrest this kid, he wouldn't have been able to buy the guns he bought. He wouldn't have been in possession of the guns that he had. He would have been under the watchful eye of some courts and some cops. Now, would that necessarily have stopped him? Well, I think it would have. If he wasn't able to buy the guns that he bought in the year or so before the Parkland shooting, that would have helped solve the problem. But there is no solution that is 100%. But that one's about a 99% solution. And this young lady was saying, don't use that solution. And in that case, then what do you propose as a solution? And the answer is simply a rallying cry. Let's make sure this never happens again, followed up by the CODA. But don't use any of the tools we know are most likely to make it never happen again. Kevin, does any of that make sense?
It does, and you, Lars, you just take a look at these kids, and yes, they're children, they're grandchildren, but just what comes out of their mouth is crazy. I don't know which is, more, with all due respect, disingenuous, what we heard from the kids about this utopia that if we march, all of a sudden the world's going to be wonderful, or the Stormy Daniels interview last night.
Sorry about that. I have a little bit of cold this morning. I apologize for coughing in your and everybody else's ears.
No worries.
Listen, I don't find the young lady credible, first of all. And I'm not saying that just because I back Donald Trump. What I'm saying is that, Kevin, if I found a young lady, and I don't want to embarrass you, but if I said, go out and make the claim that you had sex with Kevin Miller, you were at a listener event, and how would you prove it didn't happen? She says it happened. There is no proof that it happened. And there's no way to prove it didn't happen. Proving a negative is usually very, very hard. Secondly, the interview last night, while interesting, didn't actually expand our understanding. She claims she had sex with the president. He says she didn't. She claims it was a one-time event. He says it didn't happen at all. She was in the president, and we've seen pictures of him with her, but how would you prove that it didn't happen? And is there and usually people look for the financial motive. I know that the left is constantly saying, you can't believe that study. It was paid for by the oil companies, or it was paid for by this, or paid for by the NRA. So you can't believe it. In this case, does this young lady stand to make an absolutely gigantic amount of money if she tells this story, which you can't prove didn't happen? And as a public figure, the president can be accused of these things, and I know Donald Trump will threaten to sue. It's very difficult. It's nearly impossible to sue somebody for defamation if you're a public figure like you, like me, or like Donald J. Trump. So she has almost nothing to lose. She has a tremendous amount to gain. She has no proof that it ever happened. And I guess what I'd ask is, the bottom line is, let's assume that what she says is true. Okay? Let's assume that Donald Trump, who likes women, who's had a couple of different wives, who bought a beauty pageant, there's no secret that he likes pretty women. Let's suppose that he did have sex with her one night. What does that tell you about him that you didn't know already about Donald Trump? And knowing those things about Donald Trump, the American people said, we're going to hire him to do a job. So does it matter at this point, or is this just the latest fun, shiny object that the mainstream media has to play with? Now, I would also point out that there is a huge double standard here. I think that for all the things I don't like about Barack Obama in terms of policy, I think the guy's probably decent to his family and all. But there were plenty of rumors about President Obama. There have been plenty of rumors about Hillary Clinton, and yet they didn't get the kind of full court press that this is getting. And in fact, we know one thing for a fact. During Barack Obama's time in office, people took a look at his book, and he told some really interesting stories. And when people began to look into the stories, one in particular was that he had gone to a play with a young lady, and that it was a play that he was comfortable at because it was African-American themed, and she was not comfortable, and they got into an argument about it, and this and that and the other thing. He had to admit later that young lady doesn't exist. She's an amalgam of 4 or 5 different young ladies, and where different things happened with each of those ladies, and he brought them all together in one story and told it as though it really happened in a nonfiction book. Now, that means the president lied. And it's a lie about race, it's a lie about race relations and everything else. Those kinds of things get almost no attention. This gets full-fledged attention, and because of the attention, this young lady is probably already making a lot of money and will probably make more. And she has absolutely no incentive to retract this story and every reason to go forward with it. So, Kevin, you give me your take on it. A, do you think she actually had sex with the president? B, do you think it matters?
All I can say, Lars, to go back to your first statement about me and sex with women is I'm going back to the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky. Now, listen to me.
I did not have sex with that woman.
Right, exactly.
Look, I got to tell you something, Kevin. When I'm on remotes, when we see each other at CPAC and other events like that,
right.
I've told my producers for more than a decade, I just said, look, I don't end up alone with women ever.
Exactly.
I don't go to dinner with them. If I do, I bring my producer and we sit and we have a professional conversation. If somebody needs to pick up something at my room, I say, I will bring it down to the lobby for you. I work hard, like Mike Pence does, to make sure that you're never, ever in a position like that. Now, do I think that Donald Trump has put himself in a position where people would be more likely to believe this young woman's story? Yeah, I do. I think his reputation precedes him. But do I think that he actually had sex with her? I don't know. And I just see that if somebody could write her, she's already received allegedly $130,000 not to talk, and now she's stands to make a lot more money. And the biggest thing she can say is that after she talked about telling her story, somebody, we don't know who, walked up to her in a parking lot and said, "Don't tell the story. It'd be terrible if something happened to that little girl's mother," referring to her daughter, saying that Stormy Daniels might get hurt. Well, okay, and so she was threatened, she says. Maybe she was. But I could say somebody walked up to me in a parking lot and said, "Kevin Miller is the best talk radio host in Boise." And I said, well, I already know that's true, so you don't have to tell me that. But, I could claim that somebody in a parking lot told me anything because it's the safest kind of claim you can make. How would you ever prove it didn't happen?
Lars Larson with us. Catch him tonight, 6 to 9, Monday through Friday. By the way, we've got 30 seconds left, but I really enjoyed your interview with Howie Carr. It was awesome last week.
Howie's a good guy. Your audience, I'm sure, knows Howie's a talk show host in the northeastern United States. He's carried on a couple of dozen stations up in Boston and the areas around that. He's one of the top experts on crime, mobs and such in Boston. But Howie writes some great books, and he's a newspaper columnist, talk show host. Good guy. And thank you for the compliment.
Lars, we'll catch you tonight, and always working. We so appreciate you, sir.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Kevin. Take care.
Our great friend Lars Larson joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up next, Michael Snyder and your calls. KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We'll hear from Michael Snyder coming up, I believe. Nobody in the lobby of the broadcast center, so that means more quality time between us. Do want to thank Lars Larson. What a great talk show host he is. Liberty Linda joins us now. Good morning on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. I wanted to talk about the statement the youth made about democracy will not flourish until guns are taken away. Kevin, we categorize these as children, but they're old enough that they should have been taught the difference about we the people being able to protect ourselves. Kevin, where are they getting logic? Where are they being taught logic is my question for the day.
Well, it's not really logic, it's propaganda. That's what those kids were all about this weekend. Utter, simply propaganda.
Right. I mean, that's the foundation of this nation. That is like, the Second Amendment, that we have a right to carry guns. It's part of it. And these children, if we want to categorize them as that, have not been taught this yet in their lives. And it really bothers me when I hear them going out and not even understanding their own country that they were born into.
Well, I'm so tired of them saying it's democracy.
Exactly. Because, we know our voting system is democratic, but our nation is a constitutional republic. Haven't they been taught that yet?
No, I think they just like to be freewheeling and fancy free. And like we've talked about here at KIDO Talk Radio, when I hear they're going to do things, well, okay, you go pull an 8-hour day and then you tell me, then you can lecture me. Until then, stay in the background.
Right. Now, we were taught these things. I know I was from a little child. I understood the United States of America, but it doesn't seem like they even know the country that they're living in. I love what Lars said, about 25, if before 25, if you don't understand guns, and the things that are taught, you don't have a heart. Then after 25, you don't have a brain. So,
well,
anyway.
and like I said, it's, they're giving a voice to these kids. And, somebody said to me, they don't want to take the guns. Well, yeah, they do. They want to take the guns. That's what this is about.
Obviously, they've been brainwashed, and, you feel so sorry for them. And that's why I love calling into your show and listening to your show, because we hear logic, and we don't hear that in the media. We don't hear it anywhere else. So it just, when we call into your show and the people that call in, you have absolutely marvelous callers that have logic. And we're craving for that. It's something that we crave today to hear is logic.
Well, we get it from you, Liberty Linda. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for being there for us. You have a wonderful day.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
Traffic and weather together. Oh, Pat from Middleton posting on his Facebook, let me be clear, Stormy is a prostitute. She led a life of performing immoral acts for money. Anybody disagree with that one? Won't hear that one from Anderson Cooper. Tess in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Tess!
Hey, so I went down to that rally. Wow, lots of people.
Yes.
Lots of people. Mm-hmm, yeah. Well, the biggest problem is that it was pretty apparent that there are a lot of other agendas riding on the coattails of these kids. There was a group down there that was called Indivisible, and they were collecting with other people petitions, and the Medicaid people were down there collecting signatures. Except, the only problem is that I've done ballot work, initiative work, and what I saw with the initiatives that the signatures they were supposedly collecting, you have to pre-qualify people to sign those to get those on the ballot as an initiative, and they were not doing that. So what that tells me is they're not telling people the truth. They're collecting your signature to create a database. So, hey, I don't care what party you're with. Do not sign that petition. They're putting your name on a database because I'll tell you, I don't think the state of Idaho has allowed an initiative on the ballot in maybe 12 or 15 years. And, I'll tell you who else was down there. Now, they had signs that said March for Our Lives. I only saw maybe 150 teenagers that were down there. I wish that there had been more.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Thousands of thousands of thousands.
Well, I would say that there were maybe 3,800, 4,000 people. It was a big turnout.
But you had a bunch of other people besides the students.
Well, what you had, you had not very many students, but they had a first aid tent there. That's a little unusual. They had tents there that were for handing out signs. The people I talked to were from the teachers' unions. It was organized beyond and above those students, and that was very apparent. And who was also there. So this is supposed to be a March for Our Lives, to protect our children. And Planned Parenthood had a table down there.
Well, it just sounds too organized. And that's the thing you're not going to hear from anybody else anywhere in the Treasure Valley or across the country. This was an organized national effort to take the guns. That's what this was.
Right. Yeah, it is. Well, you had a group down there that they want to make an effort to try to keep, to tell parents to keep their guns locked. And it's called Be Smart. And I agree with what their program is, which is to educate parents, to educate their kids about guns. But to know the information that she was providing to people was that they want to stop private gun sales. They want to stop sales off of Craigslist. And as soon as she said that, I said, no, you can't buy guns off of Craigslist, Amazon, or eBay anyway. And when you do buy off the Internet, you have to go through an FFL. So they're disingenuous as to what they're doing down there.
That's how we sum up the whole thing. Tess, thank you for the call and appreciate your eyewitness report. Coming up next, more of your phone calls. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
And don't forget, coming up this week, we'll be at Ultra Touch Car Wash in Meridian, right on Cherry Lane, across from Kids again, saluting the great city of Meridian. Stop out and see us. We'll be in the big tent on the sidewalk, and you'll hear the cars zooming by. Just another of our outreach programs that we do, 2, 3, 4, 8 times a year to salute the great cities. Our first city that we'll be saluting will be Meridian at Ultra Touch. And next week we start Win K. Millie's Cash, your chance to win $5,000 on KIDO Talk Radio. Go to KIDOTalkRadio.com for the very details. And again, K. Millie's Cash, $5,000. 5K. Wow. But first, let's talk about the democracy. Let's talk about the do-gooders. Let's hear from the marchers.
Starting at the State House.
Because today we march for our lives, because we are the future.
Different ages and races coming together with the same message.
It's really scary because I feel like I shouldn't be able to go to school and not feel safe, and it's scary, and I just sometimes wonder, what if it happens in Boise?
Hoping to grab the attention of lawmakers.
I work with children that are 6 weeks to 5 years of age, and we still have to do practice of lockdown drills and look at active shooter concerns, and so all our kids matter, and they're not listening.
Why would you not want to do a lockdown drill to protect those kids?
9 days before I graduated from Seattle Pacific University, a man came to my school and shot 3 students, killing one of them. How could I be a teacher when I couldn't guarantee the safety of my students? How could I go to work every day without being terrified that I would be in another school shooting?
And music.
These rules ain't changing. God bless America.
Marching through the streets of downtown Boise.
I think a lot of people are going to hear this.
There we have it. The children of the Treasure Valley. Free thought or a reflection of political, social, cultural indoctrination. Pete in Mountain Home with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Pete.
Kevin, that was beautiful. That proves the point I was going to make. Eric Holder, when he remarked about to get rid of guns in America, they would have to start brainwashing the children, and that's obviously what they've been doing
every day of the week, and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
You called for it. There you go.
I would also like to add in, Mr. Holder, and this is Obama's fundamental transformation of America into a progressive socialist dictatorship, I believe. Mr. Holder's approval of the Fast and Furious operation, where they were knowingly allowing guns to be purchased by members of the Mexican cartels, so they would take them back to Mexico and Mexicans would die and they could then blame it on American gun dealers. It is not too big a stretch for me to think, you look at this shooting in Florida and the warnings that the FBI had and the warnings that that sheriff, who was a big Hillary supporter, all the warnings they had, and that promise program which says ignore crimes committed by students, I don't think that they were actually organizing a mass shooting, but I think they were hoping for one so they could use it. And I personally believe that they deliberately ignore stuff like that, the warnings signals, in favor of, okay, let's see what will happen, and then we can use that. And I would really like Congress to call all those people involved in and put them under oath and ask Mr. Holder and ask that sheriff, is this part of a deliberate effort on your part? And then call in the FBI and say, would you care to explain exactly why you ignored those warnings?
You only hear that right here.
I may be paranoid, but I'm wondering, am I paranoid enough?
Well, I find it refreshing compared to what we face in the world.
Well, and you look at the whole trend of the left in this country, and Hillary came out, she said, I want Australian gun laws, and that is turn in every semi-automatic firearm, turn in all your pump shotguns, turn in your lever-action rifles, and we will destroy them, and you will now need permission from us to have a gun, and you'll have to show a valid reason why you have it, and you'll have to store it under these conditions, and we can take it away anytime we feel like it. That's what they want.
They do, and they're taking the kids.
Yep, they are brainwashing them, and, I don't know, maybe what we have to do is just dump public schools and go to the voucher system so parents can decide what school to send their kids to.
Pete, thank you for the call.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for being there. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Some more sights and sounds, both pro and con. Here's an NRA TV host being critical of the student protesters, saying no one would know your name if your classmates were still alive, from the Washington Post.
I wish a hero like Blaine had been at Marjorie Douglas High School last month, because your classmates would still be alive and no one would know your names.
Are they going to arm the person wearing the Mickey Mouse costume at Disney? This is what the National Rifle Association wants, and we will not stand for it.
We cannot move on. If we move on, the NRA and those against us will win. They want us to forget. They want our voices to be silenced, and they want to retreat into the shadows where they can remain unnoticed.
They might preach NRA, they might preach GUN, but we're preaching REV. Register, educate, vote.
And by the way, that's right, it wasn't an anti-gun rally in Boise or in Washington. That didn't sound like anti-gun to me. Tom in Nampa with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tom.
Oh, good morning, Kevin. I tell you, obviously the law enforcement and fell down on the job in Florida on this one, but to try to make it look like it was a conspiracy like that last caller, that's ridiculous. Can you call that refreshing?
That's Pete.
You think there's absolute a conspiracy to allow this to happen deliberately? I mean, that's poppycock. Come on, you got more intelligence than that. Still there?
Just listening.
Well, when I wrote the Second Amendment and the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it was back in the 1700s. What kind of firearms they had? They had muzzle-loading guns, and I think I have a muzzle-loading rifle. It's broken. I haven't shot it in 25 years, but about the most you can get off of your rapid loader is about 3 shots a minute. I just wonder what the Founding Fathers have to say today if they saw the kind of firepower, these semi-automatics that they can with bump stocks, I guess, can almost convert to a automatic weapon. And they outlawed machine guns in the 1930s. That's the one that the gangsters used back then. And so, while I don't think you're going to get rid of gun violence, I do believe that the amount of carnage that you can administer with one of those semi-automatic rifles would be drastically reduced if you had the assault weapon ban that we had for 10 years from 94 to 2000.
Yeah, but you still had, by the way, Tom, but you still had school shootings then. And by the way, our friend Dwayne says this. I like his thought. Where's the rage against the actual shooter? Where's the rage against Cruz? All they want to do is vilify the NRA.
Well, wait a minute. That's these March people. I don't support them in the least. I think they're a bunch of goofballs. So I'm not part of anything like that. So don't try to make it look like because I'm.
You were just advocating for gun control, Tom.
Well, wait a minute. You got people on this show that use conspiracy theories and think that the government is actually trying to let these things happen. So they got more.
Well, what about Fast and Furious? What about Holder? What about Lynch? What about when Eric Holder? What about when Eric Holder says this?
We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Think that's working?
Well, I don't support Holder. That administration is out. And I think with Trump in there, you're not going to have something like you're envisioning with that. It's just that you got people that were opposed to even, they raised the legal age to buy guns in Florida to 21. What's wrong with that? I think that should be. You can't buy liquor anywhere in the United States until you're 21.
It still hasn't stopped the shooters. Tom, thank you for the call. Cindy in Caldwell with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cindy.
Oh, my goodness, God is not. And you're right with your last comment. It's absolutely, positively ridiculous. If you look to Israel, who had a couple problems in schools, no more. Why? Because I like the sign that the NRA, I believe in New York, was trying to just put a little sign up, armed victims live longer, or someone to protect you. The insanity out there. And, seriously, I couldn't just even think of doing anything with that march. I went over to Emmett and saw a great bunch of about 20, 25 kids just riding in the little old rodeo rink out there.
They weren't marching in Emmett?
No,
Shocking.
They were actually doing something healthful. They were actually, I was watching the teacher, and they all had their eyes on the teacher. And you know what? It just rather sickens me, but it doesn't surprise me. I heard Zach Brooks, and I'm hoping you can have him come on and speaking to the issues in government schools. Of course, all his children are homeschooled. He spoke so eloquently when he was asked about what president that he would pick as his favorite or most like to emulate. I was just totally impressed by the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, and the way he talked about this nation and schooling. And it is a mindset out there. And when you teach, and I'm not going to say, I'm sure in some schools that may not happen, but when you come out with a worldview that is absolutely the antithesis of anything that was purported to have in your public schools, which was the Bible taught, so that people would have a moral foundation. And also, that's why they were learning to read early on in public education. And it's just tragic. So whatever else we get, I would say, I had no idea that interview was on last night. I actually was praying for a friend whose husband was in the hospital with AFib. But the bottom line is, it was Palm Sunday. You made a comment, Kevin, not me, but you said this morning, you said, God save the Republic. Well, you did have a God that came to save us from sin. And you know what? I just want to say that you had Lars Larson on. And Lars Larson had, for this woman who chose to live a life of making money, for sex. People do have sex. Let's be real. That's why they're passing out the condoms all over the place in the government schools.
Look, they're not passing out the condoms here.
Well,
I don't think they're passing out the condoms at the broadcast center, so they're not passing them out everywhere.
No, okay. Literally, I can tell you where they are. I don't know about that.
I can tell you for sure. There. Cindy, I got to run, but thank you. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey,
all right. Nonstop talk to the Glenn Beck Show. Brian, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey there, Kevin. I want to address the March for Our Lives thing, but I need to address something with Tom first. He loves his 12-gauge shotgun, and so do I. I've got a Remington 870 that holds 7 rounds. If I put buckshot in that, that's 9 .357 shells going out at one time. Now, if you times that by 7, you can do the math. That's 63 rounds of more deadly ammo than an AR-15 shoots. Now, if he doesn't think that the left isn't going to come after his shotgun with its high-capacity magazine that shoots 63 rounds of buckshot that is more lethal than an AR-15 that holds a 30-round clip, even let's say you splurge and buy a $120 clip that holds 60 rounds. Your 12-gauge shotgun holds more. And let's just say he calls and says, well, I don't have a pumped shotgun. I've got a 2-cylinder break-open shotgun. You can still put 2 buckshot loads in that, and you're throwing out 12 bullets at one time. How's that for your rate-increasing device? This is the logic of even the Sunshine Patriots that are on the right. They don't understand weapons. They don't understand anything they're talking about. The left, I couldn't go down to the march, but I watched the rally, and I asked simple questions like when they said, we don't want weapons of war. I asked a simple question. Can you name me one gun that is current or clear back to the musket that hasn't been used in war? I got no response. And instead of getting, like logical discussions, I got told I was a racist.
Well,
I got told right. I was mentally insane.
And Brian, that's how it works. I got to run, but thank you.
You bet.
All right, Brian, appreciate the call. Traffic and weather. And we continue on. We'll ask everybody to be very short because we've got a lot of calls with little time. We go to Liberal Steve at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Idaho. The only way things can be slowed up, Kevin, is if they follow through law enforcement on the paperwork and everything else, and backgrounds are done better. As far as the gun control, we have our Second Amendment, and we're going to hang on to our guns. Stay fired up, Kev.
All right, Liberal Steve, not really awake this morning. Let's go to Tea Party Bob at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. We keep forgetting we're not supposed to be talking about the problem with the guns. It's the problem with the people that shoot the guns. It's a mental problem. It always has been a mental problem. When you look at all of these mass shootings, almost every one of these kids that has had a problem that shot up a school, they were on psychotropic drugs. We all know that. So why aren't we talking about the way we pass out prescription drugs or the way we handle mentally ill people? This is where the conversation has to go. It doesn't belong on the guns. The guns are the instrument of the death. They are not the ones who actually perform the killings. So let's get back to the real subject matter. How do we fix the people who are sick in this world? And how do we change that? It's not about getting the guns at all.
GemStatePatriot.com. Thank you, Tea Party Bob.
Thank you, my friend.
Our great friend, Tea Party Bob. Ray Jr. joins us now at KIDO Talk Radio. He'll bring us home. Good morning.
Hey, man, Tea Party Bob. Hey, I'm just tired of hearing this thing about founding fathers and what kind of weapons they have. I'll tell you exactly what kind they had. They had the exact same armament that King George's army had. And that citizen militia even had cannons. So let's get off of that. We need to have the same things that we might be attacked with in order to defend ourselves. That is the purpose of the Second Amendment. Kevin Miller, love you, brother.
Love you, Ray Jr. Kevin Miller here in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. And keep it here if you're just tuning in on 107.5 FM or 580 AM. This is the place where we talk about the big issues with Glenn Beck, with Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, and your local guy, Kevin Miller here, proudly serving the Treasure Valley on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Now, because we have the pattern change, that's why we've got 107.5 FM talk. So, again, our flagship 580 and 107.5 FM during those, again, those power-ups, those power-downs. We've addressed that issue because more and more people are tuning in, and we so appreciate you. Appreciate Ray Amaya doing a great job getting us off on the right path this Monday morning. Don't forget, coming up this week, Alter Touch in Meridian. We're saluting that great city and everybody in the Treasure Valley. And win K. Millie's cash, $5,000. Your chance begins next week on KIDO Talk Radio. God bless and keep the faith.